The story begins with the destruction of a mobile city called Regios by some creatures called pollutant beasts. However, some bikers known as the Heaven's Blade are on their way to defeat the beasts. As the safety vehicles are deployed, the Heaven's Blade arrives at the scene. They begin fighting the beasts with their unique weapons called Dite. However, the beasts have the ability to regenerate, so they quickly finish it off. At the military school, it's the day of the entrance ceremony. Nina scouts for new students to fill the slot in her platoon. Our protagonist arrives late to school. He is met by a reporter who he introduces himself to as Layfon Alseif. Everyone's attention is drawn as a fight breaks out between two academy students. Their attacks escalate and destroy a building which collapses on a student. However, Layfon receives a telepathic alert and he saves her in the nick of time. Afterwards, he is summoned by the student council president Karian Ross. Nina is interested in recruiting Layfon, but she learns he was summoned by the student council president, so she rushes out. The president informs him that the academic city of Cherai is run by students, which means he is the one in charge of everything. He tells Layfon he is being transferred from his general studies department to the military department in respect of his skill. Although Layfon doesn't want to be a soldier, he has no choice but to obey. Nina arrives and begs the president to leave Layfon in her care. After school they both part ways, and Layfon notices a girl throwing a tantrum at a hole. He notes that she was the one that sent him a telepathic message, however she leaves without saying a word. Back at the battle, the beasts keep regenerating, so the fighters use their maxed attacks one after the other to finally destroy the beast, who is fused on a cellular level. The next day at the base, Nina introduces the platoon members to Layfon, the sharpshooter Sharnid, the Dite mechanic Harley, and the second-year psychokineticist Fairy. Nina moves to determine his combat position by having a practice battle with him. During the battle, the others are impressed that he can keep up with Nina's skill. However, she uses an external type burst skill which Layfon is unable to block, eventually knocking him out. At the infirmary, Fairy notices he has a huge flow of K, which is their energy source. This implies that he pretended to be hurt. Outside, she tells him that he was tricked into joining the military by her brother, who is the president. Although Layfon doesn't understand what she means, he notes that his uniform, which was supposed to be rushed, fits him perfectly despite having an arm longer. He arrives to work at the Regios Corps, but meets Nina, who yells at him for leaving the hospital. As they work, they talk about how living life in the Regios is like being trapped in a bird cage. Nina explains that there are people who can move between different Regios, and she hopes to do so one day. The next day, Layfon is tired before the inter-platoon match even begins. Nina is mocked for leading a weak platoon. However, she motivates her comrades so they can move up the leaderboard. As the battle begins, Nina explains that they have to either eliminate all the enemies or capture their flag. They are engaged by the enemy, but Nina defeats one easily. However, Layfon seems to be struggling to keep up. The president tells Commander Vance that Layfon is hiding his true ability. The entire group is uncoordinated, so Nina is cornered by enemies and put down. However, Layfon comes to her aid, but the enemy gang up on him and toss him over a cliff. Nina faces the remaining enemies alone but can hardly keep up. She uses the last of her strength to launch an attack that is easily invaded. The enemy commander launches a barrage of attacks on her, but she doesn't give up. Fairy is able to convey her feelings to Layfon, so he charges at the enemies, revealing an advanced color of K. He then defeats the enemy commander and claims their flag. Lilin, a childhood friend of Layfon, attends a management school in Grandel. One day, she meets a girl and suddenly begins to cry. The girl, who notices something strange about her, introduces herself as Sinola and makes a move on her. After the match, Layfon is totally ignored by Nina and Fairy. The president commends him on his performance. He adds that he expected nothing less from a Heaven's Blade wielder, who are only 12 in the Regios. Layfon tells him that he no longer has a Heaven's Blade before walking away. During maintenance, Nina reveals she is angry because he intentionally lost to her during their mock battle. So, Layfon explains that his hometown called Grandel was constantly attracting pollutant beasts. He explains that during that time the only path to survival was fighting. However, he wants to take a different path this time around. At that moment, an alarm is sounded and Nina runs, saying Zuellni, the city's consciousness, which is a fairy, had stopped working. They arrive and find that some masked men have captured Zuellni. Another student is also there who transports everyone present to another space, apart from Layfon. Once there, they begin fighting. Nina is told to stand by, but she attacks the fairy thieves instead. An enemy's mask falls off, revealing it to be faceless. As Nina looks at it, she is affected by its ghost, and in turn the other student uses a special burst of K to end the battle. He immediately wipes the memories of Nina, who then falls unconscious. Harley explains that Nina once confronted a man who wanted to sell a baby fairy. Although she succeeded in freeing the fairy, the man let her fall to her death. However, she is saved at death's door by a bigger fairy who exchanged its life for hers. Outside, Layfon is dragged by Miffin the reporter and Naruki. They introduce him to their friend called Michi, who thanks him for saving her at the entrance ceremony. After a tournament at Layfon's hometown called Grandel, the queen refuses to give Layfon's Heaven's Blade to the winner as the custom demands. Inside, she meets the real queen who she has been filling in for. The real queen has been living her life as an ordinary girl called Sinola. She begs the queen to return to her duties, but she reveals she has found someone she wishes to pay close attention to for a while. At the base, it is time for training, but Fairy is absent, so Nina dismisses everyone. Sharnid invites Layfon on a date. At the restaurant, they find Fairy working as a waiter, so Sharnid laughs his guts out. This makes Fairy upset because he was the one that suggested she works at the restaurant. They spy on her, waiting to capture her super rare smile. However, she scares the customers with her stern looks, so the manager tells her to smile more. She tries practicing, but she is unable to smile even when she tries. Sharnid tells him that she is unable to express emotions because of the strain her psychic powers put on her brain. So the manager gives up on making her smile and changes her outfit to something hot. With this, she charms the customers without having to smile. After noticing her brother came to the restaurant, she stops working. Once outside, she uses her power on the camera and even burns the memory card. At the park, she finds that Miffin's group is doing a part-time job, so she offers to join. They go to an abandoned alchemy research facility, and here Miffin begins her investigation, but shortly after she is attacked by a beast. The others come to her rescue, but they are also captured. Luckily, Vans arrives and slays the monster. He explains that he too was investigating the abandoned facility. He orders Fairy to use her powers to find her captured comrades and also call for help. With her powers, she locates her friends. However, they are attacked by more beasts on their way, so Vans battles them. Fairy uses her powers to alert Nina and Layfon, who begin rushing down. As Vans is put down, Fairy moves to rescue her friends, but the monster stands in her way. She uses her powers to cause the roof to collapse on the beast, leaving Vans to deal the finishing blow. Several days later, Layfon and Fairy are hanging out. Meanwhile, Michi is waiting to give him her homemade snacks. However, she doesn't approach him after noticing he's walking with Fairy. On match day, Layfon invites Michi out for lunch, so they go out to eat at a restaurant, and after they have dessert in the back. He compliments her baking skills and they have some light chit-chat, but as they converse, there's an explosion in the city. Pollutant beasts have started destroying the outskirts of the city, so Layfon leads Michi to safety. President Karian calls for a briefing where he explains the situation to the students. He orders them to prepare for battle, so Nina begins moving to her assigned position. On her way, she meets with Layfon, who reveals that the enemy is too strong for the students to handle. He advises them to join the evacuation. However, Nina refuses to turn tail. The sharpshooters begin their assault on the monsters and Nina leads the ground forces to attack, but she soon discovers the gruesome nature of the pollutant beasts. Layfon, who initially planned to flee, has a change of heart after noticing the deserted city and asks Harley to set up his diet weapon. He then asks Fairy to help him locate the queen mother of the beasts. Everyone in Nina's unit flees from their post, leaving her to be overwhelmed by the beasts. She is surrounded but saved just in time by Layfon. He tells Nina to flee, stating he can kill the beasts at will. With Fairy's direction, Layfon goes outside to locate the queen mother. He ends up finding his resolve and slays it. Some days later, Michi goes to Layfon's base to give him a letter she stole, but at the entrance, she is questioned by Fairy, who makes her nervous, so she runs away, leaving the letter behind. Fairy goes inside to prepare for training, but Nina arrives saying the training session is cancelled. She immediately heads out, much to the surprise of everyone. Fairy reveals that her brother wanted to see Layfon, so she invites him home. At her house, she tries cooking but is terrible at it, so Layfon helps out in the kitchen. After dinner, Karian shows Layfon a photo of a pollutant beast at its larva stage. He tells him Zuellni that their city is heading for where its location is. He explains that they need his strength to survive the trying times. At home, Layfon finds Naruki waiting for him. She tells him that her supervisor wants him to work with the police, and her application for the job also rests on his response. Upon hearing this, Layfon asks that she give him some time to think about it. The next day, Layfon is seen training and so is Nina. She seems to secretly be in competition with him. After training, she dismisses everyone, and as Layfon leaves, Nina picks up a letter he unknowingly dropped. Layfon accepts his invitation to the city police, so he is paired with Naruki to carry out an investigation. As she explains the situation to Layfon, the criminals begin to carry out their operation. Layfon joins in the fight, so shortly after the chief praises them for quickly resolving the issue. Nina hands the letter over to Layfon and exits, but before he opens it, he gets a call from Harley to come to the base. Once there, he is given a new diet to test, and although he complains about the weight, he seems to enjoy testing it. During the training session, Layfon spars with Naruki but easily puts her down. She notes that Nina is also an incredible fighter. Later, Layfon and Naruki's group tails Nina, who heads out in the night. They find her training alone despite being exhausted. Naruki surmised that she must be trying hard to keep up with Layfon. As they watch her, she suddenly collapses, so she is taken to the hospital where she is treated. Ferry arrives with a photograph revealing that Zuellni would be detected by the beasts the next day. The following day, Layfon heads out into the wild to confront the pollutant beast. However, he discovers that the monster was in fact lying in wait. Layfon learns that it has evolved to its mature form. He engages the monster alone in the wild for a full day but only manages to cut off a single leg. Ferry uses her telepathy to inform him that Zuellni has changed course, so he should return. However, he tells her the beast can easily catch up to them if it wants to, so he continues battling it alone. Shortly after, his platoon members arrive to provide support. Nina hatches a plan where she would use herself as bait. They put the plan in motion and succeed in trapping the beast in a canyon and eventually defeating it. At Graden, Lilin reads a letter she received from Layfon, but she's interrupted by a man. However, before he could introduce himself, they are both transported to the roof. Here, she discovers the two men are Heaven's blade wielders called Savaris and Lintes. In Zuellni, the 17th platoon is having a match. Layfon is confronted by Gornio, who is hailed as the strongest attacker in the city. Karian reveals that Gornio is the brother of Savaris, who was once Layfon's partner. The battle begins with Gornio using his K to control rock projectiles. However, Layfon breaks through all his attacks. Another enemy, called Shanti, dashes in to attack Layfon, but he blows her away easily. He creates multiple clones of himself, and as they try to locate the real him, the match ends because their flag has been captured. Later, Karian summons Nina, Layfon, and Gornio. He reveals that Zuellni is approaching a city that was attacked by pollutant beasts. The two combined platoons head out into the wild. They arrive at the destroyed city, so Layfon takes point in securing their entry point. Inside the city, they notice corpses of inactive pollutant beasts. Nina recognizes the city as her previous enemy during an inter-Regios match. She rushes to the tower where she finds their flag. However, Layfon tags along. There they are attacked by Gornio and Shanti. He reveals that Layfon was expelled from Grand after he was caught participating in an underground match. Later, Gornio reveals that he has a grudge against Layfon because he incapacitated a friend of his, called Jared, in order to hide his illegal activities. He requests that Nina makes sure he doesn't have to work with Layfon. At Grandel, the two Heaven's Blade users investigate the killings of former Heaven's Blade tournament participants. Although they know the culprit, they are unsure of his motives. Lilin writes to Layfon that she is being targeted, and Sinola sneaks in to tease her. However, the window is blown open and she freaks out. She runs out to check for the safety of her father. She arrives at his house to find him in battle with a human chimera. It goes on a rampage on seeing Lilin, but her father defends her and attacks the beast. He defends against its echo attack but collapses from exhaustion. As the beast moves to attack, Lilin unknowingly summons a magical beast that scares off the chimera. It flees outside, but Savaris catches up to it. The chimera reveals himself to be Jared, Gornio's friend who Layfon incapacitated. Savaris toys with him for being weak before he finally deals the finishing blow. During a briefing, Ferry reports that she has sensed a creature but can't identify what it is. Gornio suggests they investigate physically, but Layfon reveals it would be too dangerous. However, Nina, who is cold towards Layfon, agrees to Gornio's plan. Afterwards, they head down to the lower levels together. Ferry forces Layfon to carry her like Gornio did Shanti, but he is uncomfortable with it. He narrates to her how Jared threatened to reveal his illegal activities if he doesn't lose their match. However, during the match, he defeats Jared by cutting off his hands. He was then captured and exiled by the Queen. Back in the present, everyone arrives at an area filled with graves. Ferry reports that she senses a sign of life, so Layfon rushes out. He goes underground and finds the soul of a pure fairy in the form of a deer. It entices him with promises of power, but instead, Layfon attacks it, making it disappear. The others later arrive except for Ferry. Layfon senses she is in danger, so he goes looking for her. He finds himself in the selenium storage room. Here, he is attacked by Shanti, who wants to get revenge on behalf of Gornio. However, he easily defeats her. Gornio arrives and reveals he doesn't wish for Layfon's death. The conversation is cut short by the explosion of a selenium tank. He saves them from the explosion using his K. Outside, Gornio prepares for Layfon to take revenge on him, but instead, he begins evacuating them. As they head up, Shant falls off. However, Nina arrives in time to catch her, so Layfon uses his K to raise them to an area where the air is good. After the battle, Karian forces Ferry to visit the pool against her wish, and they are joined by her platoon members shortly after. Later, Nina tries to teach her to swim, but she is distracted by watching Layfon tutor Michi. The next day, Layfon is asked to tutor Ferry, but as they practice, Karian gets suspicious. Later, Layfon is summoned by some ladies who take him inside a bunker where he finds Karian waiting. He questions him about his relationship with Ferry. He reveals that he would go past any mile to punish him if he hurts his sister. At the bath, the girls are taken hostage hostage by a group of robbers. However, Fairy uses her psychic powers to locate their dites, and so they are able to subdue the enemies. As Nina and her comrades have dinner in the restaurant, they are approached by Dean, who is the captain of Sharnid's former squad, the 10th Platoon. He praises Sharnid for improving his skill, but promises to destroy him during the next inter-platoon match to prove that he didn't leave any void to fill when he left. After they leave, Layfon receives an emergency call from the police. He arrives at the scene to find someone overdosed on a band enhancer. Shortly after, Layfon confronts a mysterious enemy who uses a katana. As he escapes, Layfon goes after him. Nina is also alerted by the battle, so she heads out, and on her way she is confronted by an archer who doesn't want her to aid Layfon. Layfon catches up with the enemy. After a few exchanges, he notices he is from Grand. The enemy introduces himself as Haya Salavan, a member of the Salavan mercenary gang. He tells Layfon that both of them were trained by the same master, so he needs him to show his real strength. As they continue the battle, Layfon's dite breaks. However, he is able to defeat the enemy by blasting off K. Afterwards, his archer ally comes to his rescue and flees with him. At Grand, the Queen summons Lilin and her father to thank them for their contribution to the Chimera incident. She asks Lilin about the well-being of Layfon, to whom she writes to. Lilin then asks her if she would ever let Layfon return to the city, and this brings the anime to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.